Hello, welcome to the 40k Spice Center. An official product of the Honest Wargamer Podcast Network. I need to put a P in there. I should really, like, THWGN.
You always need to put a P in there, Rob.
Yeah, always put a P in. Hello, everyone, welcome to the show. My name's Rob, and I am joined by my co-host. Let me introduce my co-host to you guys. This is an important thing, and I want to make sure I get this absolutely right, because there's been some pretty massive changes behind the scenes here at Honest Wargamer HQ.
Restructuring.
Yeah, there's been some restructuring, so let me just kind of like let everyone know exactly who you're talking to now and what their titles are. First up, Tom, the head of customer relations and social credibility. Tom, welcome to the show.
Fuck you all. Have a nice day.
Nick, chief data analyst and director of internal stonk analysis.
3.25% rise in Drukhari stocks this week.
Wow, that's high.
Sell.
And then finally, obviously, myself. I don't have a title. Not deserving of one. It's just there. Finally, just shout out to John, our behind-the-scenes man, head of bribery and lead developer in charge of paper commerce. Stonks quite high in 40k in the paper commerce kind of region.
One could say the stonks of the actual stonks meme that we, brought to this scene are quite high as well, with everybody fucking stealing that joke from us. Again.
Shout out to James
Maybe
Powell.
we could claim some sort of royalties from it. That'd be great.
At some point, we need to do like a knockout tournament vote, which is, you know how people like go on Twitter and say, "Oh, number 1 seed versus number 16 seed, vote for which one's going to win like the most ridiculous tweet of the year award or something like that." Yeah. We need to have a competition of the best stolen joke of the year award, and I feel like the final is going to be between Stonks and James Workshop.
Both,
and I think James Workshop might just edge it.
Yeah,
but, pretty high stonks on both of those.
Welcome everyone to the show. The show today is just going to be us. We're having, someone said, is this the Honest Wargamer taking its quarter refocus on core competencies? Answer yes. Answer 100%. Encore GM, thanks for resubscribing. James Powell said he came to watch Dawn of War, though. Watch this shit. You guys I wasn't here last week. Thank you guys for covering me. I was doing some work behind the scenes. How did last week go, gents?
We had some technical difficulties because I had to, do all the tech from scratch straight away. But it was a good fun game. We had a 3-way with Colonel Cabbage, and I was cruelly picked on by Tom and Colonel Cabbage.
Well, I didn't think Colonel Cabbage did anything. What do you mean
constant
picked on?
2 versus 1 bullying against me, and then Tom just launched his monolith at me, and destroyed me, which was totally cheating.
Monoliths are overpowered. You heard it first.
I normally pay extra for that, so that's interesting. So today's show, everyone, is going to be. I feel tricked, says AOSP. I thought this was a general show about Honest Wargamer launch. It's not. It's 40k content.
I mean, we do have 90 people in here, which is more than we
Tom,
have.
Tom is the head of outward-facing communication and disparity through engendered leadership, committee head. What are you doing to make sure our show titles are the correct ones?
I feel like I announced one video this week, actually, which you can talk about very, very quickly.
You did.
Let me have a quick look. Although, actually, my Twitter's kind of blown up a little bit. Mainly because of Rome Total War again, so I'm going to get the title of the video because it was a favourite of mine. It was called WH40K Bat Rep Chaos vs Imperium Gone Wrong Gone Sexual Giveaway. That's the new video that's going to drop within the next day for the Honest Wargamer Network or the THWGN.
Yeah, it could also eventually be the THWGPN, or we're not really sure because it might be because Podcast Network doesn't make sense. So maybe Media Network. So THWGMN, I think, is maybe the potential. We're workshopping it. If anyone's got any thoughts, please let us know. Thanks to Hams Fan for gifting a gift subscription in the chat. This
guy's everywhere, by the way. I was watching a stream with 90 views the other day who was just like some guy on Twitter I follow. Yeah. And just in there, I turn up and Hams Fan gets gifted a gift sub. It's just like, why is he here? What are you doing?
He follows you. Right, so Today's show, I'm going to be catching up with my show hosts and seeing how they both are, because even though I spoke to Nick earlier in the 40k pre-show show, we're here today to hang out. Hey to the first Brain Squig. Yes, loads of people here. I think loads of you fooled by the title. Apologies. It was more of a 40k apologies. Joke.
Like
Zero. Yeah, we don't apologise on the show anymore. Yeah. That's one of our new rules. No apologies. Only.
Wow, director.
We don't really have time for this. So if you leave, then we know it's because you're just being spiteful at this point.
That's the point. We're going to be taking the news section, which is quite broad, and we're going to be extending it to the whole show. So that's what today's show is going to be about. So if you've got any questions or some hot news that you think need to come up, then please let us know. There are a couple of sections that we need to get through first. Number one, the How Are You section of the show. That's how the show begins with Nick. How are you? What's been going on?
Me?
Yeah.
Me? Yeah, I'm pretty good. I did the pre-show with you earlier, where we talked about all sorts of random shit, particularly bevel or flat bases. I'd like to throw that into the chat. Bevel or flat edge bases.
I don't know what a bevel base is, mate.
The standard Games Workshop base with the slightly angled edge, giving you a reduced surface area for your basing materials, or the flat edge, giving you most potential for your basing scene. You know, given that unbiased question, non-leading question, what is the better?
I'm going to go for bevel, actually. I like how it kind of points like a pyramid towards the actual model rather than it being flat.
You're also an idiot.
I am an idiot. I mean, we already knew this, but this is just what it is. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. So we did that show earlier. I've just finished a game of Age of Sigmar versus Dayton from the Sunday show and also Party at the All Points. Mm-hmm. I lost. He killed the monster in the middle and then claimed the center. So that made me very sad.
Was it nice going back to priority rolls, or?
I wouldn't say it was nice. It didn't make a huge difference to the outcome of the game. I don't think it was just like a bit of a laugh, because it's just the tournament's just a laugh, isn't it? That we're doing between the show co-host, showdown, throwdown. Just a bit of a laugh, really, isn't it? So,
I mean, listen. How about priority roll in 40k? Let's go. Let's have that chat very quick. 3 votes. Twitch chat, you all get a vote. I vote yes. Nick?
I vote no.
I vote no.
Tom?
No.
3 no's. All right, Tom, other quick question for you, firing at you. 40k, but no terrain, yes or no?
Yes.
Nick?
No.
I'm going for no terrain. So whatever I said.
Rob. I was setting you up there, mate, specifically so you wouldn't have to paint any 40k terrain.
Appreciate you. Well, so exciting news on the terrain front before I quickly get into Tom, and I promise I'll keep this under 48 minutes on another terrain chat. But shout out to you guys won't be able to see it. God damn it! I did it in green.
Oh, nice. That does look good.
Yeah. So this is he's in the chat.
That to the chat.
Yeah. So he's in the chat right now, Shadow Sun. So this is a design by him, which I have just tweeted a whole board's worth of designs by him, where he's taking some Eldar. Well, he's designed Eldar terrain specifically to fit into a 40k format. Which is super. You guys can't see this bit because it's green. But check this out. This is the coolest bit. You're like, okay, look, buff. Buff. Slaughter. So when we want to pack it up, baby.
That is fancy.
That is fancy. He's a very clever man.
How many boobies does it have on it?
0 boobies. He's done a really good job of only putting like no boobies on.
Nice.
Shadow Sun, a little obsessed with sticking boobies on everything. And honestly,
I don't know. There's a couple of like gemstones that you could paint to be like boobies there if you really wanted some boobies on it.
This is why I think people listen to the THWGN.
There's a reason they call this Ladies' Night, Rob. We just talked about boobies.
Is there going to be a Goonhammer article on how good Eldar terrain is? Let's hope so. Let's hope. Tom, how are you? Catch me up with where you're at.
I'm good. I'm really good. I finished painting my knights finally. I finished painting my guard bits finally. I'm now finishing up my my Custodes bikers, which I never actually finished. So I've done all the bike. I'm just doing the torso now. And then hopefully that should be done pretty soon. I've then got some Sanguinary Guard all painted up over here. I've played a lot of Rome Total War, but we don't need to mention that because everyone just assumes I do that anyway. What else have I done? I've had a really good productive week, mate, to be honest. It's been nice.
Good. And I know you're very excited about Rome Total War being out today.
I've already played it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna keep the show fairly short, so Tom has a cracking evening. That's our goal. So
it may or may be out of the background. It's not, but it could be.
It could be.
If you see me sit like this, you know what's happening.
Well, hopefully we'll keep you super engaged. Right, hello everyone in the Twitch chat. Thanks for joining us. It's lovely you're all here. Some Norwegian dude, thanks. He says, too much shooting maybe in 40k for no terrain, I think. Intern Matt makes the best point, I think. If mini wargaming can take the priority role out of Age of Sigmar, then why can't we just put it into 40k? That's the real talk.
If mini wargaming could make up all the rules, then why can't we?
I could talk about this forever, but like bat repping is almost an impossible uphill challenge for people. Like there is zero way, like as an adult human being, that you can learn the rules for every single army and play them to some degree, day in, day out, and flip flop armies and units and like get that right. I'm gonna put that out there, like, which is why we always set up doing live coverage. Well, like we go down the process of live coverage.
I've been actually watching a lot of bat reps this week.
Okay.
A lot of bat reps, just because I wanted to like see how different people did different things. You know what I mean? Not as in like just play, but how like you put out the bat reps. Some of them I had to stop watching 50 minutes in because honestly, they made my eyes bleed. Some of the other ones I've actually started watching a lot more just because it's interesting. And one of the things that's really highlighted to me is play style. Before I used to maintain that play style wasn't a thing. It's just some people are good at some things, some people are good at others, and ideally you shouldn't have a play style, because you should be capable of just playing whatever is the best way to win the game, right?
Yeah.
But because we're so early into the edition, people have got lots of different ideas on how the best way to play the game is. Mm-hmm. And so I think specifically in the early days of an edition, watching bat reps of just people playing the game is really, really useful. And I picked up some ideas I want to try out when we start playing properly.
That's really interesting. I think one of the other interesting points about that whole conversation is that your playstyle when doing a bat rep is intentionally entertainment orientated. Your play style when I remember Zach from the London GT. I was at Warhammer. I was working for Games Workshop at the time, and we had him on as one of the first competitive games that we streamed. He travelled down and he was taking, this is 8th edition 40k, no, not 7th edition 40k. He had a bunch of scatter bikes, which he was up against the free rhinos with the grav and the drop. The
gladiators.
Yeah. Right, and he had the Eldar scatter bikes, and he sat in a corner, and I shit you not, for 3 fucking hours. Try commentating that game. It's not entertaining. It's not fun. But it was cutting edge competitive, right? Like so, like I feel like those bat reps are like intentionally geared towards entertainment as well. So you can't do like it's more fun to do the fun thing.
It's more fast and loose. I would just throw that in there because it'd be fun and entertaining rather than hyper competitive.
Yeah.
I suppose 100%. Are there any bat reps? I mean, I suppose the more hyper competitive ones are more live streamed bat reps because people enjoy over explains where you would talk through why and what you're doing.
And they can ask questions.
And a good example,
and that's the entertainment that people will want because they want to get that knowledge from watching people play at that level or those type of players.
A good example of that is Glasshammer. So what they've been doing is they do the armies, we talk through the armies, and then they cut to the player by themselves explaining why they've picked their scramblers. And then they kind of play the game together, and then at the end they have a big period to talk it through. And I think there's some more things you could do with that'd be really cool, but the idea is there, right?
How long are those bat reports? Because
2 hours.
The reason I don't really watch bat reports is because they're so long.
Oh yeah. Man.
An idea that I've always liked the idea of is basically you could do pre and post match analysis. So you could have like, I don't know,
Hey,
15
Nick,
to half an hour.
We know
video.
a lot of people. Nick, just fucking rate it in, son. Like, I get where you're at, but THWGN pn.t.com. Fucking that's like pockets.
I mean, what I mean to
cards
say
in pockets.
What I mean to say is, I think is we should make battle reports longer.
That's it. There we go.
Both players building and painting their armies, and then writing their list, like a live stream of someone just sat there on the sofa doing Battlescribe. and then traveling to the game, playing the entire game. So maybe 36 hours long.
At least a day.
Probably
I want to
sweet
wake
spot.
up in the morning until the
something.
night. I want it to accompany me through the daytime as opposed to the dark thoughts that haunt me night and day. That's what I prefer. Right, so...
Before we move on, Rob, I've also played a game this week.
Okay.
I played a game with Drukari. And
With
it was
Drukari?
fucking bonkers.
Let's leave that. Should we leave that for the...
Problem.
Yeah, should we talk about that in the news section? Yeah, let's bring it back. Okay, thanks to Shorty Paint Studios for resubscribing. Appreciate all of you. First Brain Squig in the chat, which is Nick Thompson from WS10, has said that he obviously does a load of... he flip-flops armies quite often, but he also plays a lot. So I feel like... But then there's a very big difference between flip-flopping armies and playing, and flip-flopping armies and presenting those armies. Like, there's a significant difference, I think, between all that. Right, and there's also Play 40k in 40 minutes. Yes, Play on Tabletop, who do really good. They do really, really good, excellent quality, great humor. Absolutely, like I don't know if anyone, Nick, have you watched either Alaskan Bush People or have you watched Gold Rush, which is a TV series about miners mining in the Yukon for gold out of the earth? Have you watched any of those?
No.
Have you watched 11 seasons of it like I have?
No.
Tom, have you watched 11 seasons of Gold
my
Rush?
mother watches Aussie Gold Diggers.
Okay,
Oh,
that's very different. Aussie Gold
Isn't
Diggers, it sounds the same,
Yeah,
but
it does.
worlds
It's not the
apart. I just need to point that out. The Play on Tabletop stuff is in that vein, and I only really watch Gold Rush and that so that my brain can turn off, because it's so Americanized and built for obviously people who can't read or whatever that's designed for.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean that's not what I mean. I just mean if you look at the
have
general...
seen a Play on Tabletop battle report, and is it like they have lots of shots of the person in a chair facing an interviewer,
excellently edited,
and then he rolled a 6, and I was like,
Do they have,
oh my god,
an Irish man in a big leather chair who's telling the story of the game every time something happens?
It's really good. It's really, really good, but I don't think it's like aberrant 40k. Like, it's not in any way, like, it's 40k adjacent, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not anyone, like, to the people who just play 40k at home with their friends, like, you are, like, cool, like, whatever. Like, you're great people. Great people. Great people. To me, that's not 40k. You're playing at a tournament or you're not. Those are my two places. Or you're playing a practice game for a tournament. Otherwise, you're doing some sort of weird fucky stuff, which I don't really fuck with. Hey, really excited about all those Crusade tournaments that have announced that are coming up and sold out in the next year. Have you guys seen that?
I have not. Are these on WarhammerCrusadeTournaments.com?
They are sold out
so
the world over.
Sold
out the world over. Yeah.
the Las Vegas.
There is not one ticket left for those events.
Play on Tabletop deserve to be sent to Phantom Zone for their Harlequin player wearing the Harlequin leggings. Listen, they do great stuff, is my point. They do amazing content that's really worth watching. If you are someone who enjoys 11 seasons of Gold Rush like me. There's a spin-off series of Gold Rush, I want everyone to know, but you don't have to watch it. Also, Alaskan Bush People. Anyone's on that season 8 hype with me, get involved.
I mean, as someone who used to play a lot of cricket, I'm used to just sticking something on in the background and just doing my thing, and then just kind of passively absorbing it, right? And that's what I feel like battle reports are good for me. I couldn't sit down in the chair and watch it like I'm watching fucking Game of Thrones. Well, I could actually, probably. Season 8, maybe, but the rest of Game of Thrones, you know what I mean?
Right, okay. Thanks to Gaz of All Trades for gifting a gift subscription in the chat. It's very much appreciated.
While we're there, I did a recording with Gaz of All Trades and the off-the-shelf hobby guys, where they showed me 3 appalling lists and I had to rate them. So you can check that out. I've retweeted that. Go to my Twitter feed, take a look at that, give them a follow. It's I enjoyed making it. So yeah, go.
Okay, that sounds really fun. Yeah, I will listen to that. Thanks, man. Gaz of All Trades, that is. What's it called?
It's Off the Shelf Hobby.
Okay. Off the Shelf Hobby.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So into the news section because Valerie is mad at me for cutting you off, and we'll move straight into the topic of the day. I think yes. Tom. As the nominal directorial lead and creative development adjunct on TTS Battle Report information, can you let us know what happened in your Drukari game?
I can. So, I was playing my first game of Drukhari, and in my list, I had 4 Raiders, I had lots of Racks, I had 2 Void Raven Bombers.
Was it 3 patrols?
No, it was 1 Void Real Space Raid, and then 1 patrol. And the reason why is that I can get a Cabal of a Black Heart section in there. I can get my Witch Cults in there for my Succubus, and I can get as many racks as I need in there as well. Because if I'm having to do 3 patrols, I basically end up having to choose between a second patrol of racks, a patrol of Black Heart, and a patrol of Cabal of Witch Cults for my Succubus, right? So I did the Real Space Raid. It cost myself a couple of CP. It wasn't a massive deal. I still had some left at the end anyway, so it wasn't an issue.
So you can write a list where you get whatever the fuck you want, and there's no real opportunity cost.
Exactly. So I was playing pretty much. I was playing against John Lennon's Imperial list. Okay. Now I can get this Imperial list for you, but I'll give you the specifics. The general gist. It was a guard patrol, I believe, with 2 Manticores of full payload. And what full payload does, it allows your Manticores to always be damage free. Okay, they're pretty strong. Okay.
I need more emphasis in that. That's not enough. It's like always be trading, always be moving, always be damage 3. I need more.
Always be damage free. They also heal wounds back. Yeah. Okay. With Jury Riggers. And they also have the ability to re-roll 1 of the dice when firing their multiple shots. So on average, you're getting like 9 shots with your silly what they're called, silly rocket launchers and all that jazz, right? Mm-hmm. And I had and then they had a bunch of dreadnoughts. So 2 Telemons. They're like 16 wound, toughness 8 dreadnoughts, -1 to damage. So my liquefy guns just bounce. Invulnerable saves, 6+ DPRs because they're Shadow Keepers. They get a stratagem that allows me to be -1 strength when I shoot at you. So base, I'm wounding on 6s +1 for my Dark Technomancer and my racks. Okay, so I can't kill these dreadnoughts. I can't kill them.
Okay.
And then he had a Banner, Vexless Praetor, and he had Trajan. Okay, so I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking, my liquefy guns don't do anything to this. I can't kill it. And not only that, we're playing in Dawn of War, which is one of the most spread out deployments. So he can just spread out. And then my Void Raven Bombers can't really do too much, right? Mm-hmm. They can't really hit too much. So I go first. Crap, damn it. I fly both my Void Raven Bombers over. I then discover my Hellions have the infantry keyword. So we jump over and raise the banner in the middle of the board.
Perfect.
Then the Void Raven Bombers drop the bombs, do a bunch of damage to some dreadnoughts in the middle. But also what's happened is, because of where I've put the Void Raven Bombers, the dreadnoughts can't move in one direction.
Right.
Because there's like a piece of terrain on one side, with some dreadnoughts behind it, a piece of terrain on the other with the Manticores behind it, and then in between them are the 2 Void Raven Bombers.
Okay.
And then, so to get the dreadnoughts out, they have to walk the other way around towards the other dreadnoughts. So I put them down. Fine. Void Raven Bombers, block them off. Do some damage. No big deal. I then run in my turn 2. In my turn 1, I've run my Witches and my Hellions up. And in his turn 1, he has to move his dreadnoughts around the other side away from the Void Raven Bombers just to get him to do anything.
Yep.
He shoots like some Hellions off, it's not a big deal. I then take my Witch Cults, my squad of 5 Witches, because he's now left his Manticores all alone because he had no other choice. Tag up the Manticores, take the Raiders, walk them into his face, and sit there for 5 turns.
Not 5 turns against.
Just sit there for 5 turns. Because I've got 4 Raiders, mate. So that's 40 wounds.
Yeah.
With a 6+ vulnerable save basic, toughness 6. I then have, inside them, lots of little squads, where if you kill the Raiders, then I'm blocking you again and again.
Yep.
And then I've also got racks coming on the board edge, and Hellions jumping onto your objective and taking your banner down repeatedly.
Oh.
So by the end of it, I'd killed, with my Cabalites just blinking, I'd killed 3 dreadnoughts, I think. And I think that's about it. Yes. No, I never said 4++. I said 6++. So, okay. The chat has got hard on to find people cheating again.
Sorry, Valerie's just in it. He's just keen. His blood's up.
Yeah. He's one of those kinds of guys that just joins any stream and just looks for any signs of cheating to out him on Reddit.
He's not. He's a long-time listener, first-time talker.
I know. I'm just rolling. I'm just rolling straight through the chat. So basically, I just sit there and I can't do shit. Like, it doesn't even matter that I can't kill him. If you take the damage output fucking component out of Drakari, didn't matter. You couldn't do anything. And this is an army where you're not actually even building in durability, and that's part of why they're so cheap. You don't care about durability in Drakari because when you push something into the middle of a board, you're basically handshaking that it's going to die anyway. So any points that you've invested into it being durable is just down the drain anyway because it's just going to die. The only thing you'd maybe get is a few less guns shooting at it, which doesn't matter when they're the only thing you can shoot at anyway. Which is why Drakari play the missions so well, because all their points are invested into going really fast and kicking something off a point.
Yep.
When you then double that down into MSU, whereby your durability is not about how strong and durable the individual units are, it's about your ability to consistently pump them out and drop them in places that your opponent finds them annoying in.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, that kind of leads us into the kind of conversation of the week about the win percentage and the quality of the Drakari Codex.
Yeah.
Now, I have read all of Frontline Gaming Network's articles on this, and they're fine. So I don't know what everyone's kicking off about.
I saw that tabletop tactics video.
Do you mean the MetaWatch article?
All of those have told me that it's all okay and everything's super, super good. So, like, I don't know why everyone is being pissy, is kind of where I'm at. And I need to know, Nick, have you read anything other? If you read the MetaWatch article, because that is explicit in the complex nature of how to play with these armies and use them.
It just said everything is awesome. That article, but I have read the Goonhammer article.
Those salty, reactionary bitches is what I think. Yeah? Tom, have you read the Goonhammer article?
Yeah, I have.
By the way, we've skipped a whole section. I want to quickly go back a section before we carry on with this. Can we all talk about our favourite internet thing of the week, please? Or our content we've liked. Tom, you've done yours. Nick, do you have one?
Week. Oh God, I don't know. You just sprung this on me.
It's okay. You think on it. I'll tell you mine. Mine is Innes Wilson's Twitter account. That's mine.
It has been very good this week. It has been very, very good. Big.
I've heard that you can eventually monetize your tweets. His would be one I would subscribe to. Like,
I haven't seen all of his tweeting, but one image that he did tweet did tickle me a lot, and it was like lose game of 40k, I'm bad, depression, and then the other was lose game of 40k, my opponent's army is OP, you're fine.
No depression. Yeah.
No depression. Yeah. That was very, very funny.
Very funny. I'm a big fan of him. Okay, keep going.
So I have read the Goonhammer article. So they did a round table discussion on Drakari and if they're OP.
What you mean is a hit piece.
Yes.
Overwrought.
Taken as a personal attack. Yes.
Yeah, an overwrought hit piece, really designed to antagonize the community, is how I describe it. But
just a massive salt mine.
What did it say? I mean, we've all read it.
If no one's read it, I can briefly summarize some of the questions. So one of the first questions was, are Drakari overpowered?
The leading question,
Bob says, basically, probably yes, good players are winning events with them. Richard Siegler says, maybe, but other codexes might counter them, and he thinks they're undercosted. Innes Wilson said, aye, they're undercosted and overpowered. Good long and short shooting, no core attacks for them. Fucking core is mental. That's what he said. Wings said, yes, it's too good, but let's not be hasty on what's changed, nerf just yet. He thinks Gamesworks is going to swing the big nerf bat in. And Boone said, yes, they are. And Falcon said,
the Boone is actually correct.
I think we should.
I rarely agree with Boone, but he's correct on that one.
Should we answer along with them?
Well, shall I give you some stats, Rob?
Love stats. Go for it.
I know you like stats. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Drakari had a 70% plus win rate that extends to over 1,000 games recorded.
Mm-hmm.
That includes a 79 wins and 24 losses record against Space Marines.
Yeah.
A 34 wins and 13 losses record against Custodes.
Impressive.
A 44 wins and 19 losses against Sisters. That should be higher. Drukhari should be beating Sisters the vast majority of times. 58 wins and 19 losses against Dark Angels.
Oh.
And 62 wins and 18 losses against Death Guard.
Nick, we painted up the wrong army, mate. we fucked it.
You've got partially.
All of the armies have bad win rates against Drukhari.
Shit.
Dude. We're gonna get Chrome Kari next, boys.
You've got some Drukhari, Bob.
I have loads.
I
Sadly,
do.
you've got Talos, and
I've got loads of racks that Wildman keeps trying to buy off me, but I intentionally won't give them him. Because he's a local player to me, and I'm like, I'd rather they stay unbuilt in a box to me.
I'm selling it to Spain.
Keep a nuke in the submarine in the bottom of the ocean, please. Thank you very much.
Right, so Jim in the chat says we just need to take more chainswords. As a top North American player, he very
otherwise
aware
known
of
as a human being.
Otherwise known as a person with arms.
A below average UK player.
Yeah.
UK
player, did you say?
Valerie's been saying that Grey Knights have a positive win rate. I have been saying this for 2 weeks. Grey Knights are gonna counter Drukhari.
Do you think
that's the counter I've got prepped? Yeah.
Okay, that's the counter. Okay.
That's the counter.
That's the counter.
How
certain are you that you're the one person in the world who's worked it out?
95%.
It's bold.
And I'm not saying that I'm the one person. I'm sure that other people have thought of it too if they've got fucking brains.
Well, no, you've made it much easier for me to do the show title now. It's going to be we've solved the Drukhari problem.
And with the current list we're seeing for Drukhari, I'm very confident that Grey Knights are the faction I'm most
current form or the new form.
The current new form of Drukhari, I think Grey Knights beat it. I think I've got a couple of players working on another idea for me, but I haven't seen the list yet that they've produced. And another one of my players has got another idea that he's been working on with some other guys. So I need to see what they've got up their sleeves, but I'm certain about the Grey Knights. I'm pretty certain.
Okay. Well, so let's kind of talk about it because the win percentages kind of seem to say what they say. And there's loads of pushback. There is nothing but YouTube videos and commentary already on this subject. But let's cover old ground.
Back in the box.
Pardon me?
We need to put Carthage back in the box for all that assault, mate.
Yeah. But let's just cover the old ground because all the arguments come the same, don't they? They are: will the meta adapt? Tom seems to think yes. And Grey Knights is the answer.
No, I don't think it'll adapt though. Like, let's say that you take Drukhari to a tournament and you know your only bad matchups are and not even a bad matchup, like it's like a 60-40. Your only potential bad matchups are Grey Knights and then maybe one more.
Okay.
You're still going to see Drukhari everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Right. My eyes will be covered in Drukhari. Nick, how do you feel about the meta needs to adapt argument?
I don't really know. I don't feel I'm an expert to really answer that question.
Fair.
I guess the meta can only really react where it can possibly react currently, and that is, America, they're playing tournaments. Australia, they're playing tournaments. We're not playing tournaments in England currently yet, but we will do. But I don't think that in their current state that the meta can react enough to Drukhari. My opinion is a little bit informed by the Goonhammer article, so I'm not going to try and pass off these points as my own opinion. So in the article, they're saying some really good points about they had a really high win percentage straight away. So it wasn't like a book came out, people took a bit of time to figure out a list and then made it good. It was just good straight a fucking way. And then there's some almost obvious things that just should be like the whole Dark Technomancers things with all the flamers. That just seems it's got all the benefits with no downside. That is ridiculous. And I called out Games Workshop of the week when they did that MetaWatch article. They had Nick Navati and Scarvi on, and they submitted what they think were powerful lists. And therefore, I think Games Workshop were like saying, yeah, look, Dark Technomancers all liquefiers is A-OK. It's brilliant. Although I think that is something that needs to be addressed. So I think until those kind of things are addressed, I don't think the meta can necessarily react because it just seems too good. You've got a raider with 10 capacity. That's 10 liquefiers in there, just flying around. You can't kill the liquefied guns until the raider's gone.
So
the raider can just hide behind something, fly really fast, and shoot where it wants.
Specifically, you can't give them all liquefiers. Unfortunately, it is one per 5, and the sergeant can take it. But yeah, you are right. So you can get
a lot of liquefiers in a raider.
Yeah, you only need 4 to kill most things, mate. I'm gonna be honest. That's like 4. That's 14 shots average. Wounding on 2 is -2 damage 2, or -1. I can't remember.
I just want you all to know that I want to go another way with this entire conversation. Yeah. Because 2021, Rob, a lot more positivity, a lot more energy, a lot more oomph in the room. I want them more broken. They're not good enough, is where I'm at. Yeah. Let me talk to you about why. Because the pandering, the obfuscation, the attempts, like it's quite funny. People who own shops and run events saying they're not that bad. Like, come to our events.
You want to see how low people go?
Yeah, I want to see like how bottom feedery people can get trying to justify.
The more broken a book goes, the lower that limbo bar gets. These people are like, oh god,
it gets wider and wider. Because I've read a lot of the commentary this week. I've watched a lot of the videos. I read an awful article a moment ago about, I can't remember where it was from. It was, so you're facing against a 70% win rate army. What do you do?
Die, most likely.
And the strategy was, or the assumption, it was like, take some big risks because maybe it'll work out. Which
Go get him, Tiger.
Go get him, Tiger.
Go get him.
It's so fucking
Just believe.
Good. Like, and I love stuff like that because it really just removes any criticism out of the conversation. Like, you can't be critical. You can't have a part of the conversation. Like, truthfully, like, I think it's kind of fun that they're that good, and I want more. Like, the other argument that goes on, because this is part of the Goonhammer article, and I want to kind of bring it up as well. Tom, see what you think. One of the main conversations is, don't worry, AdMech will wreck 'em. Like,
not on WTC boards. Holy shit.
Yeah. I'd like everyone to know, by the way, last year we went through this whole process with Age of Sigmar. It was like, Seraphon's Inch were way too good, and everyone was like, don't worry, other new books will get them. Next book, by the way, was Gargant, so lol. But the, like, I've been through this. Like, Innes's tweet today, I was like, oh my god, that was me a year ago. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, it does intrinsically matter. It does.
We need to apply context there, mate. What was Innes's tweet? Because I was going to bring that up in a minute anyway.
Okay, well, I'll let you through it. We'll come back to it. My question is, how do you feel about the argument that new books will solve the problem?
No.
No.
Makes more problems.
Because that just means that games. Well, I don't know if it means that, but does that mean that Games Workshop are like, this is their sales strategy where they just release? It's a power creep strategy where you have. If you want to be on the competitive train, you have to buy the new book that's come out. And where does that leave players like myself who, some of the newest books in this edition, Necrons and Death Guard, are the ones that I mainly want to play this edition because I've got a massive Necron army that I've had for years and I love, and I've got a new Death Guard army that I love that I've painted up. I want to use them, but am I just like stuck with the short straw that you just happen to get a shit book and everyone else gets the bigger straws and that's just it? And then you go to a tournament, it's like,
I've got an article for you, and it is, Nick, just take some big risky plays, mate. Like, just go get him, son. Just go get him.
I remember when you talk, you'll have a story forever, mate. It's great. So it is made a point, and I think this is a tweet that you're referring to, Rob.
Yeah.
Where he was saying, look, in 7th edition, Games Workshop didn't intervene at all. There was nothing. We had no FAQs, we had no communication with the competitive circuit, and in a sense, it just forced all the competitive players to adapt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you were at the London
There's
GT.
a pin in that. But continue on with your point. I'll come back to
you were at the London GT in 2017.
Fuck it. I was also at LVO that year, and it all sucked.
It all sucked. Okay, for me, I had a great time because I loved playing Ynnari mirror matches. I just loved it. I get to play Ynnari, brilliant. I get to play Camel Stars, and that's it. And I get to play Taudar, and that's it. Perfect. I'm all sorted. but for the middle tables and lower, it was an awful fucking experience. Imagine you're just sat there and you're playing against me, and I'm like, well, I'm going to push my entire Elder army up, and then I'm going to shoot this unit, and then I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to shoot it again, and then I'm going to shoot this unit, and I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to shoot it again. And then when you come back for me, well, you killed this unit now, so I'm going to shoot you with this unit. It was just permanent command interrupts everywhere. And it wasn't a fun experience for anyone. So, yes, people will adapt, and it creates an interesting environment for me personally, because I get to play just Terran versus Terran constantly. I don't know. But for everybody else, it's an awful experience. And that's the point where Games Workshop balances anyway. Games Workshop has never balanced their game for the top end of competitive play, and it never will. And you can demonstrate that by the fact that all of their playtesters are YouTubers.
Some aren't. There are other non-YouTuber playtesters.
Nah,
but, I mean,
not in 40k.
Well, I mean, also some of the
Nah. No.
No, I'm calling that some of their
No.
Anyway, so the point is well. So my pin in that, by the way, Tom, is that that is what gave rise to the international tournament circuit, as it's so known, affectionately sometimes known as the ITC. Some people accidentally mistake it.
Circuit or the international tournament circuit?
It's actually the international tournament circuit.
I see. When did they change that name, Rob?
Several years ago, I was informed. I actually reached out to their creative developer early on another issue, and he quote, his only official press release to me was in quotation marks lol. Like
that's a great communications officing there, mate. Brilliant.
But my point is that's how ITC came about, because the game was inherently imbalanced. Yeah. And so what they did was they tried to create a vehicle through secondaries to make it so that every army could try and play a different way. And I think that's great. That was something that they did cause for their community, also for themselves, because obviously they wanted to put on events and they wanted people
and get cool games as a form of comp.
Exactly, 100%. Like cool form of comp. And my point is what is it that event organisers are trying to produce, I guess, in wake of this information? I think we haven't we'll come back to that question later, probably. It's kind of just felt natural to ask it now. Probably the result of the end of the conversation. It's just more, we'll continue on with the facts about Drukhari super strong. So new books might come out and they might kick the dick out of Drukhari. Is it not fair to say if they kick the dick out of the Drukhari, they kick the dick out of everything else? Is that not...
Yeah, that's sure. Well, I guess it depends, like, if a list comes out that destroys Drukhari, but then somehow Necrons and Necrons and Death Guard, and then Dark Angels, who are the books before, like somehow have an answer to that. But that would just, but it doesn't seem that way, because Drukhari seems so strong that if a book can beat them, then there should be the biggest stick there.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with that. And Tom, what you feels? Twitch chat also. What your feels on new book, be it whatever? Surely, if they're going to kick Drukhari's ass, they'll kick everyone else's ass as well, or is that not like?
Depends on how they do it. If they do it by just shooting things off the board, that's perfectly fine. Then they'll probably kick most other things' asses. It's like how certain units have problems against Death Guard, but they smash everything else, right? Mm-hmm. Namely things that just have lots of damage too. But it depends how they do it. But theoretically, yes, I'm trying to think of a way in my head where there's a scenario where they beat Drukhari, but they don't beat everything else. I think that it's possible, because I think Grey Knights do that. I think Grey Knights beat Drukhari because of a couple of very specific conditions that they fulfill. Namely, they have the ability to remove a lot of the mobility of Drukhari from lots of different places without exposing themselves. And they also have the ability to tank the Drukhari hit. So Death Guard can tank the Drukhari hit, but they can't shut down the mobility and end up getting locked in and lose. There are certain factions which can blow up a lot of Drukhari vehicles, but if they take a hit, which they will because they can't kill it quickly enough, they're going to die immediately when they do get hit eventually, right? So you need both those two things in tandem, and that's why I think Grey Knights beat Drukhari, specifically because of the Astral In mechanic, and because they have access to a -1 damage and shooting stratagem for their Terminators and the units that do that, right? That's why I think Grey Knights beat it, but that doesn't mean that Grey Knights beat every other single faction out there.
Okay, interesting. So, okay. All right, so we've discussed that. Nick, what's the next kind of set of questions in there, or are there any other questions?
Well, one question is this worse than the Iron Hand situation? And most people were saying
Yes.
Where is it?
So I can wait on that before you even go there, Nikos, if you want. I feel like with the Iron Hands, they were strong because they did one specific thing very, very well. And therefore, it was just something people couldn't stop, right? But the moment that you took that away, then they had problems, right? I feel like this is more akin to 8th edition Craft World's problem. And what I mean by that is Craft Worlds took repeated punches throughout an entire edition and remained competitive until the very end. Think about where we start with Craft Worlds. We started out with Dark Reapers everywhere, right?
Oh, Tom, I can't ever fucking forget. Nick,
Yeah,
we're still hurt by it.
So we started out
I'm
with
still
Dark
very
Reapers, and then we
I own
ended
Eldar
up...
now, and I would never buy them because
Yeah, they're also fine cast, so that's understandable. But we started off with Dark Reapers, and at the end of the edition, we ended up with Flyers. And in between there, we had also gone through Shining Spears spam and Wave Serpents. So over the course of one book in one edition, it adapted to 4 top-tier builds. Because the book was so deep. It had the ability to tank multiple punches, whether that was in the form of Games Workshop changing rules, like increasing the cost on Dark Reapers, or whether it was the cost because people were adapting to them. Okay, you've adapted to this Craft Worlds list. I'm going to take this one. Good luck adapting for both at the same time. And they both had completely unique identities. Now, you did have, towards the end of the edition, the addition of the
Psychic Awakening.
Phoenix Rising book. Yeah, Psychic Awakening. But I don't believe that was in play for the London GT in 2019, was it? No. So even before then, you'd gone through 4 builds. Yeah. And that's what I think the problem is with the Drukhari book, just from first glance. We haven't seen that happen yet because we just haven't had the amount of time that Craftworld's book had. But my suspicion is that when you see people, I'm sat here saying, Void Raven Bombers single-handedly just beat a Art of War coaching list by themselves. And they're not in most people's lists. I'm sat here with a spreadsheet for Team Wales that we've done. It has 7 different Drukhari builds in it, and we're working out which ones we're going to test first. This is a deep-ass book.
Yeah, very deep book. And so even if the current top-tier build takes a hit from the nerf of that, they're probably likely to be able to pivot. And I think that is brought up, I think, in the Goonhammer article, where they do say, it's a very deep book, and a lot of the people in there as opinion is like going back to the Iron Hands thing. They're saying it's not as bad as the Iron Hands thing. They just quite a few of them just think it's just need some point adjustments potentially to take the edge off them a little bit. So they have a few less units. They're still probably as fast and hitty, but they just don't have as many bodies, so it's not as relentless.
Well, so my question is, like, and this is kind of like, because we could talk about, like, so Tom's specifics into how the book plays and how the army works is great. I'd like to talk about the ecosystem. At Coin, to answer a quick question for everyone at home, Nick, is there a way for you to describe what happened with the Iron Hands situation? Because some people are not sure what happened with the Iron Hands thing.
Well, basically, the meta was relatively stable, I think, at the time. We'd just come through, I think it was like an Imperial Supernis with a Castellan Knight backed up by loads of Imperial Guard, being quite good, but then being toned down. Everything felt quite settled. And then Space Marines got a new book, and then it was the first time that Space Marines got supplements to go on top of their new book. So Space Marines all of a sudden had this huge injection of power. My analogy for it at the time was you sat in the back of a car and someone says, I can't hear the music. Can you turn it up? And they turned it up way too loud on Space Marines. So they just they turned up the power level of Space Marines massively, particularly Iron Hands, where they had just a lot of good rules, and they were just dominating tournaments all over the place. And they had a similar win rate to Drukhari had.
Higher, in fact.
Recently, possibly higher, like 70 plus. And that was sustained for quite a long time, wasn't it? And Games Workshop were relatively slow to react, and even after they did react, there was still more stuff that book could do. So even this is like months after. This is probably 6 months after the Iron Hands release, it still Iron Hands list still ended up winning the LVO. It was the famous Brohammer list.
So
with the unkillable Leviathan Dreadnought.
There's context on this because they released a book, and then a year later they released a new book. With a bunch of supplements. Yeah, but then they added the supplements, which made it worse.
Yeah, it's true. That was the kind of situation at the time. And then they did do it like an immediate 2-week react, actually, Nick, because they had, very much like we had now, they had a 2-week stomp, like a pure punch into the ecosystem that is 40k. And then there was a reaction in that Games Workshop did like a kind of immediate nerf, and then there was a much longer or later kind of nerf that we saw as well, but they still smashed it for a long time. As Shadowsun said, there was several reactions actually done to it, which I think is interesting. And like when they got controllable, I think there was still other builds, right? We still had was it Dark Angel? It wasn't Dark Angels. What was the
Raven Guard?
Raven Guard. Yeah. There was the Raven Guard build. There was also Imperial Fist builds as well that were out there and kicking ass. Yeah. So generally, it was like a marine problem all over. So that's the situation that we're talking about. My question is this: to kind of like, unless there's anything about the actual like internal elements of it, here's my question for you both. Because actually, as someone putting on events here at the TSN Arena, only small little events, 1-day events for 16 people, or we're doing 40k teams. So like a day, so 4 teams of 4 people can play. They can practice like those play experiences. We'll talk about that more later. Like I'm very conscious that I want people to have a good time. That's my core focus. My core focus is not selling 350 tickets. My core focus is not paying my rent or my staff's rent or anything like that. So the people who do make these decisions, I can understand. But my question is why is there not a more proactive response from TOs? Like, if Drukhari, like, because I would like everyone to be really conscious. I think everyone knows, and you don't need me to preach to you. You're a very smart bunch of people. 72%, even 65%. 65% is not a balanced game. 60% is also not a balanced game. The problem is when you're seeing 72, you're like, wow, that's wild. Or 74 not in the mirror. You're talking numbers way above the acceptable 55%. Like, that's top-end acceptable. We all need to kind of, like, like, you know, we're abuse victims that have just had a really fucking tough time. Like, we've come through the Castellan build and fucking Dart Reapers and 9 planes and a bunch of other stuff, and we're like, yeah, 60, 65%, that's kind of like, that's all right, man. Like, I'll take that. Just don't let it get to 75 or 72. It should be at 55. That's where it should be. So my question is, to you both, how would you feel about TOs taking a proactive like response about it? Like, talk to me about if you think that's a positive or a negative.
I think Falcon on the Jason show made a very good point, kind of in relation to this, that there needs to be a book needs to be played at events in order for us to find out that it is this broken. So we shouldn't necessarily flat out ban them from events before there's an FAQ necessarily. I kind of was pro that before, but I can see the other side of the argument now, that I think maybe the book's released 2 weeks. If it has a win rate that is over a certain threshold, then maybe you put the ban hammer down until there's an FAQ that nerfs it a little bit, and then you give it another 2-week grace period after that. And if it's still a problem, maybe you ban hammer it again, or and whether Games Workshop either FAQ it at that point or some sort of TO tournament specific to their own desires, FAQ or nerf or whatever. So I think it needs to be played to find out what's wrong, and then hopefully Games Workshop will step in and do something. But if they don't, then I would like to see the TOs band together and say, well, look, this. But I guess again, it's up to each TO to do something. I don't necessarily think a world TO organization would necessarily work.
The WTO.
Yeah, the WTO, because I think each TO should have the power to decide what they do at their own tournament.
Agreed.
So it should just be the individual TO, really.
Okay, what are you, Tom? Where are you at?
I don't really care. I'll just go to tournaments I like. if people want to like step in and mandate that their own tournament like doesn't include this or they have their own individual nerfs, that's fine. We've got so many tournaments kicking off at the minute all over the place that people can pick and choose. So if people want to do that, you know what, you've added some variety. I've got no problem with that. But I may not go to it, but I mean, I'm sure there are some other people that will, and that's not a problem I have. If people enjoy the game in a different way.
So then let me follow this up, because I think that's interesting, right? Like, you, with your purchasing power, you decide, okay?
Yeah.
That's what you do, right? As consumers. But we're talking only about tournament gamers and competitive gaming right now, yeah? Whether or not, like, whatever the situation. This is the only thing we're talking about. There's a huge conversation about books just being stronger than other books because, like, Jimmy and Tim down the road have no idea why Jimmy keeps kicking the fuck out of Tim. Like, he's like, oh my god, man, like, this is so good. Like, he has no idea, right? Like, he's just not
He must be a
conscious of it
fucking professional player, man. It's really good. Yeah, he plays Drukhari, but I can't work out why he's winning. I guess he's just so fucking skilled.
It's just big brains. My question is, like, how can the conversation of skill be a valid one in such an environment, right? Because that's key, yeah, to this. How can the whole ecosystem not laugh at itself? How can it not be, like, when we went to Wales, we started our 2 day of coverage off. Well, this event is going to be won by Iron Hands, but the question is, who wins with Iron Hands? Yeah,
I think it was Space
Hey,
Marines.
we did have Crimson Fist.
Space
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. So that was the conversation we were having. We're like, it's going to be Marines, but who wins with Marines?
Yeah.
And so,
I can. Oh, you go, Rob. Sorry.
My question is with all of the talking heads, of which we are some.
True,
Yeah.
true.
With Tom's still mad about that. Of all of the talking heads available, how can you genuinely? Because someone in the chat earlier said if you ban them, they'll just release something else that's broken. How can you genuinely consider it a game where you put that much emphasis on analysis or even meta reaction? How can you be coached in a world where you can just smooth brain some raiders forward? Like, how, right, is the ecosystem existing in such an anarchically unfair environment, is my point. How can everyone not, like us, be nihilistic jokers? Is my point. How could, like, anyone approach it not in anything other than in a hilarious, like it's fun. Like, it's fun. Like if it was a 40k tournament tomorrow, yeah, I'd be like, you know what, fuck it, I might take my ball grins. Yeah, I might run them around. I come up against Drukhari and I literally don't play. I just won't. They'll just burn my army off the table.
It's like you play that game and you think, right, well, I'm going to go and sit down and work out how I could have played that game better to win. It's just like, okay, well, I could have done nothing. You know what I mean? It's basically the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So why am I there? Why am I buying a ticket? And then why, when someone wins the event, is someone doing a show about the guy winning the event? Like, who gives a fuck?
So this is why I really like the WTC format. Because even if I know I'm going to get fucking rolled, I can still play for something.
Yes! And also, you can only have one example of the broken thing. Like,
oh yeah. If you're going for the teams,
not every event can be that.
The singles games.
Every event can be a team. Every event can be a team event, Nick.
Oh, of course
it can be, but I don't think it should be because I still think single events are loads of fun.
I think that they're loads of fun. I'm not saying
every event should pivot to be a team event.
True.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying. Oh, I don't know. Like, what are you aiming for? Like, do you want to get just face rolled by Drukhari or Iron Hands? I mean, you took Iron Hands, to be fair, when you went to the GT for the team event. So,
yeah.
I mean,
3 of us took Iron Hands.
Yeah. All exploited successfully.
3 out of 4.
But yeah, like, even if you're doing it in singles events, I think you just implement the WTC scoring system because what it enables you to do is get value even if you're going to get fucking rolled. And that becomes the game, right?
I do agree that if we're in an environment where there is a book or a couple of books that are just head and shoulders above everyone else, it does make it a bit of a mockery of it being a competitive event. I still think, events are more than just people competitive, but if we're just focusing on it, if we're assuming it is purely just a competitive event, because people go to events for multiple different reasons, but if it's just that, yes, it does make it a bit silly. And if it was, if it were, I don't want to say proper sport, but if it was, like, if you're, I mean, that's sometimes why people get a little bit bored of, like, football or Premier League in some ways, because there's just like the big clubs that win everything, and there's sometimes there's like a lack of competition. So
because they have the money.
It would be boring if it was just the newest books or a couple of books that just won all the time. So it is better for the game as a whole if there isn't this ridiculous situation. But I still do think it is fun for me. Like if I'm going to a competitive event as a competitive player, I still find it very enjoyable to take a list and take on that list and challenge myself. Can I beat it? Even if it's impossible, I give it my best shot. I still find that process very fun. Even though I know, they've got a 75% win rate, and very few of this matchup goes my way, I still find that very fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, okay. No, super fair. That's why I asked the question. Tom, where are you at with this?
Oh, it's fine. I don't know, mate. I just made a WTC point and that was all right. I'm fine. I don't know where we've gone. I have no idea what's up.
Pokesaurus says, "Oh my god, I'm sorry, is that F1 again?" Says Too Interesting. Yes, that's always the analogy, I think. Pokesaurus says, and lovely seeing him in the chat, but what do I know? I just buy the cool models. I want to paint and not care if I ever play a tournament, which I think is a lot of people's point, right? Falcon talked with me about this on Tuesday, and one of his points was when you have players of equal skill, like the Drukhari still have an advantage versus the other player with equal skill. That's kind of the conversation. Like their army is better than the other guy's army, but their skill is of the same level. Where it becomes disproportionate is in the general population, is a way of describing it. I was trying to say nothing that wasn't like lower or bottom, and I don't mean that. The general population in the then player army choice actually, if you talk to Falcon, army choice actually ticks up the win rate for you as an average player, and you generally do better, which is kind of fascinating, right? It still affects the top end, of course, but it's not quite as disproportionate, where it's significantly disproportionate in the middle bracket, if you will. So I the whole thing is
in the competitive middle.
The competitive middle. That's the one. The whole thing is fascinating, and mainly because I get to quote Battlestar Galactica, which is my favorite TV show of all time. In that all this has happened before, and all this will happen again.
That's for later seasons.
Right, and so I'm just fascinated how you can talk about. I'm fascinated about going and doing coverage of tournaments, right? When, let's say by the time we're doing, because we're doing 40k coverage at the LGT. So let's say we're doing, although I'll be doing AOS and you guys will be doing 40k, so it won't be my problem to kind of unpick. But when you are facing off against two armies that, player A should just beat player A because this army is 68% win rate, it's interesting, like you said, Nick, when it doesn't win. It's quite nice as a commentator to set up that expectation. You could just be like, these guys should win. So when they lose, it's like, you're rooting for the underdog, you're Rocky, and Rocky won. Although I was never rooting for Rocky, I was always rooting for Apollo Greed and Dolph Lundgren. I was always rooting for the other guy, I'd just like to point out. But Rocky won it. Because I don't think, he didn't seem like the underdog, is my point. Because he got all of the screen time. He seemed like the main dog.
No, I've not seen it.
No Rocky fans here.
Nah.
That's fine, just me. You've never seen Rocky, Nick?
Nah.
Any of the Rockies?
No.
I've seen the Creeds.
I think boxing's barbaric.
Do you? Why?
Yeah. Two large, sweaty men get into a ring and punch each other and give each other early onset dementia. No, thank you.
I mean, Nick, I just sold it to me now. I'm going to go with boxing.
You leave all of the Iron Hands players alone, right? They're doing their best. I've lost my point now because I don't know.
Nick must have just derailed the train immediately.
My point was is you can set up some good commentary, but ultimately it makes the whole environment around it a little less interesting, especially because of the production matter. Production matter is a fascinating part when you talk about all of this, is because if you've got a Drukhari army now and there's a tournament in your local area, COVID to the side for a moment, yeah, you could pick it up and go kick the fuck out of someone if you've got that combination of models. But maybe in 3 months' time, when like a new book comes out and that somehow smashes it, and that's fine, or nerfs come in and it isn't as good, or points change and everything moves around, or whatever the situation.
Or missions fluctuate, which I think is one of the big components for Drukhari right now, by the way.
Or missions fluctuate. There you go. There's another really good example. Whatever the situation, like, it's fine. So if you're on the tippy top now, you're like, I really want to do well. You go buy your Drukhari army, but there probably isn't time for you to build it, paint it, put it together. Well, build it, put it together, like paint it, put it on the tabletop, and it be applicable. Because you kind of really need it to build ahead of time, right? You need to build into AdMech now and just be like, let's go, let's hope, let's roll some dice.
Yeah, there's a lot of confidence in the AdMech stonks right now, isn't there? A lot of confidence in that market. A lot of people are buying those stonks.
Yeah, buy breacher stonks, by the way.
For a big payday.
Yep. Yes, I think chicken stonks are the one. The dragoons, not dragoons, the other version of dragoons, the Iron Strider Ballistari, to be specific with the naming convention. All right, well, I don't think do you think we're good? We covered the Drukhari conversation effectively. Has anyone got any questions or any points they'd like to make in the chat? I think it was a good one. Like, it
was good.
Yeah. Like, it's a fun conversation.
Well, what do you think? What do you guys think will happen in terms of what's your speculation in terms of the nerf that will happen from Games Workshop?
I mean, I think, like Tom said, they've got a very wide book. I think that's the point. Like, Raiders need to go up seems to be the general consensus, and something may be done about Dark Technomancers because it's all positive, no negative.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't seem to make any sense. But, like someone said in the chat earlier, I don't know how this doesn't come up in playtesting. Like, ignoring Tom's comment that it's only YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
They don't play apart from the camera. Yeah.
I don't know if it I don't know if it's just not like very obvious upon release. Like, because like when it happens in Age of Sigmar, like I can't do quite the same with 40k as I do with Age of Sigmar, but you can just call it. I'll be like, this is dumb, this is broke. And people are like, nah, and then it like goes on the tabletop, they're like, okay, like that supports, that's good.
Mm.
And I'm sure there are people who can call that like upon first read here. So I just don't understand how that's not something that's applied. And I'll never. And next time this problem comes up, it'll be the same conversation had by me. I don't understand how it happens. So it just must be by intent, like, or by just.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe some playtesters did bring up the fact that the Dark Technomancer Liquefier stuff is a bit over the top. But then, is it a dark, sinister plan by Games Workshop? Maybe the CEO saw that and then redacted it from the email that went to the rules writing team and buried it so they could sell more liquefiers.
Well, see, the thing that blows my mind, and it's Shugo who says in the chat, and Shugo's put some really great stuff in the chat, as of many of you, so thank you very much. I especially like Tom B's Tau to the moon, because based on how shit Tau are,
mate,
Tau
I
to
had a
the...
take on Twitter. Like, we need to stop telling Games Workshop how shit Tau are. Because if they overbuff that faction, we are going to have a shit time.
Games Workshop are trying to. Do we think that Games Workshop are trying to short the Tau market right now?
Yeah, right.
And then we should just all start buying Tau.
Do you remember when Space Marines as a faction were a joke?
Yeah,
and people were like, I'm playing Space Marines. Play Space Marines. Yeah, it's easy. And then they buffed the fuck out of Space Marines, and it was like turning the music up way too loud in the back of the car. Well, if we start treating Tau as a joke, they're going to get overbuffed. And when Tau are overbuffed, the game is not fun. Okay? As someone who's been through various Tau metas, you don't want that, boys. You
don't want a purely shooting army to be buffed to be able to deal with everything. Nope.
No.
I agree. I would say one of the things Sugar makes the point in the chat, which I'd like to push back on, is I never understand the concept that strong models sell. Yeah? Let me explain why. Because if you sell
models in terms of like strong rules wise,
strong rules wise, strong models rules wise sell. Okay, that inherently means that the weak rules models do not sell. And I can't imagine there being an intentional business practice where they're like, "Listen, lads, which one of these do we want to sell the most of?" Like, because you want to sell them all, right?
I guess. If I don't think they necessarily do that intentionally on a big scale, but I can imagine them trying to make everything good, but then going, okay, well, let's let this one little thing that's a bit over the top go because we know that's going to push some sales of this army that hasn't been selling that well. I could imagine that being something they might do.
Okay. All right. Tom, what are you thinking?
But I also think in a miniatures hobby, people, because I think most of the people who buy miniatures aren't competitive players. So I think it would make sense that wasn't their policy because people buy miniatures for loads of different reasons. Like I count myself as a competitive player, but I'm not a meta chaser. I much prefer to play armies that I think look fucking cool and I would enjoy pushing around on the tabletop.
Yeah.
Rather than just getting, that's broken, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. I'm like, Death Guard coming out. I love those models. I want to paint that army. I want to play with that army. And hopefully it's good and I'll try to play my best. So, and there's various different philosophies for people who, for their purchasing practices.
I don't know if they intentionally do it. I just think they probably don't really understand the game well enough. Do you remember when they went to that team tournament and got fucking rolled by everybody?
They didn't even have the right weapons on their fucking Tyranid mud. Like, how is that? How is that not like headline news?
You think these people intrinsically understand the game to a point where they're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to include this one bit of broken and everything else is going to be good"?
No,
I think they're capable of differentiating. No, I don't think so either.
No.
So, also mentioned that. So the last Blood and Glory that I went to, one of the head rules for 40k was last round on the bottom table. And I don't know whether was that intentional because I don't want to go and just smash everyone.
No, because you would there's no way you don't if you were skillful enough to if you were skillful enough to orchestrate to play yourself under your skill cap, you would at least orchestrate like a 4-1. You'd be like, I'm gonna just hang out here. Kirill, thanks for resubscribing, loads of love, thanks for hanging out. Ultimately, so a lot of people in the chat are talking about the competitive market is only a small percentage of the market. That's a general consensus at the minute, and I think I probably agree with that. But that, I don't want to hop on.
It's a niche of a niche, man. But
we've
the number of people that...
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, the number of people that actually purchase the models to play the game, I think it's lower than the number of people.
No.
I thought it was lower than people, because I had this conversation in 2016 with a store manager, and he'd counted, and he said 9 out of the 10 people that came into the store to buy models didn't play the game.
Well, ignoring
that is anecdotal. I 100% get that.
Yeah,
but
and my anecdotal
was
only being
that I got from that.
And my anecdotal was only being in a marketing meeting where Sigmar wasn't selling overly well. Then we released the General's Handbook, and then it sold very well.
Okay, there it is. There's that.
But that's only a singular instance, and I think that there is a great conversation about there being a wider market. I don't want to get I'm trying really hard. My new goal, by the way, in life is to talk less about Games Workshop's business practices and more about the game. So no, it is.
It's hard to when we're doing things like because.
Well, but my point is I kind of want to sidestep it by only talking about the environment. That's what I really want to talk about. And what can customers do? Because Nick, that's kind of what my follow-up question that I wanted to talk about is because some people in the chat are talking about, well, it's only the meta chasing people or the people who buy armies to perform well. But I think a lot of people buy models with the intention of trying to game. Not saying that they even go to tournaments, but they're like, I'm going to buy these models and play a game. They're not saying a tournament. They're saying, I just want to play a game. I think that's a huge market. Whether or not they ever fulfill that intent, that's the great question. But, there's a fucking lot of people who do, which I think is interesting. Look at Zach from the LGT. He's put an event on Leicester, 350 people. It sold out in an hour and a half. It was just sold. That's crazy. Just poof. So I think there's a lot of people playing. And I think there are more people who are going to play. I think that's a kind of conversation. So I guess what I wanted to ask you both is for you two, as both experienced tournament players in the 40k environment over the past few years, give me and the audience some advice. Give me some advice about what I do, right? What do I do to buy Games Workshop minis, which I want to do because I like how they look, but also with an eye to play games. And I guess there's probably two answers, one with my mates and one at tournaments. I think that there's probably two different results there. Talk to me about, is it just rule of cool? Buy what the fuck you like? Because I feel that doesn't work for a tournament.
I can go first.
Yeah, go on, Tom.
Buy one faction, play it for 3 years. It doesn't for 3 years. Doesn't matter if it's good times or bad times. Just play it for 3 years. That way, you get to understand the falls and troughs. You get to paint some cool looking minis. You get to understand what every other faction does from the outside perspective, right? Because if you're just starting to get into it, you're probably not going, and you want to be economical with your purchases. You don't want to be chasing things around, right? Because if I say, oh, I like how this army plays, and I buy an army for it, right, and I paint it up. In a year or so's time, there's a very good chance its codex is getting updated anyway. Like, we have this with Space Marines. Or at least it's getting an expansion, right? We've already had expansions for Drakari, literally the weekend the book came out. So, buy one faction, stick with it, enjoy playing with it, and also it gives you something to play with when you're playing your friendly games as well, right? Because now you get to like pick and choose the different units. You start to understand how to construct an army based upon what you have and what your win conditions are. If you try and buy multiple armies at the same time, you're only ever going to have like that 2,000 point list. And when that 2,000 points changes, as it does every year because we get chapter approved, you're not going to have a list anymore. So your army entirely is going to be redundant. So you want to build out a collection that can all be used interchangeably with itself.
All right. Nick, what about you?
Well, Tom stole basically a lot of the points that I wanted to say. Like, pick a faction that you like, based on whatever metrics you like, either whether that be you like to look at for building and painting, or the lore, or how it plays currently, and like kind of like, I know it is hard. It's not the easiest thing to do, but like decide early, and like if you can only afford to invest in one army, invest in a collection, like Tom said, rather than a specific list. Because if you invest in a collection, you can pivot for your casual games to take a more friendly list with your mates. You can pivot towards a more competitive list depending on what the current codex is or what the FAQ mission set is, etc. And the more that you play with that army, the more skilled you're going to get with it at any point, whether that be in casual games or competitive games. If you're thinking, oh, I need to meta chase, but like if you're picking up a list for a couple of weeks, like it might be a broken Dark Eldar list, but you may just perform better with an army that you know better because you've built up that skill and that muscle memory and those. Because if you're playing a new army for the first time, there's so much to remember in the game.
Agreed.
Your brain resources are your brain CPU is working overtime. Whereas if you've got an army that you know really well, your brain almost automatically does a lot of those things, and you can free up more space to focus on what's more important in the game at the time, or creative plays, or more risky plays if you're playing against 75.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you two both say this a lot about being familiar with your army when you go to an event, because if you go into a tournament, you have an obligation to know your own rules. Yeah. It shouldn't be on your opponent to tell you what to do, right? And an obligation to play within the time limit. And if you're playing one faction exclusively, that really helps you. Now, if you hate that faction or you've played that into the ground, I played Space Wolves for 3 years. I've ended the same thing with Orcs. If you want to swap faction, that's fine, but commit to it.
Okay, so my only pushback. So for the audience, because I agree with you both, but more as the counterpoint, so I can hear the reverse argument. What if I'm in a situation like the terrible Tau by Stonks Now situation are in, like where they're not very good, or GC Cults as an example.
I guess at that point it's like it depends on the person. You know, do you have the purchasing power to have two collections, or a big collection and then a small side collection? Because variety is the spice of life, and sometimes it's not, you can't play the same stuff all the time. So sometimes it is nice to have an off army.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. I think that's a really fair point. Unless both, what if you're like, I like Tau and GC Cults, like, because there's zero way to be I know I'm with you. Like it's a catch-22. That's where I feel that the people who are more on like AdMech are coming up. So if you start buying AdMech now, and someone in the chat earlier made a great point. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been. I can't remember who it was. Someone made a really, really good point. I think it was Yes Meatballs. Said if competitive players did not represent much of the sales, this is a fucking 11 out of 10 point I'd like to point out. Yeah. Then why are the broken units always sold out?
I mean, all the units are sold out.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Yes, they've had production issues.
Look at the website.
No, yes, production issues are an issue. But yeah, he's right. Like the broken stuff is almost always sold out. Like straight away.
Is that just like a stock? Like they just hold enough
stock? Yeah, it's going straight for it
so
as well.
As soon as it's broken, they sell that, and then because in normal times, if that there's a steady drip selling of that product and they constantly slowly top it up to have the certain amount, but if a codex comes out that's broken, that stock goes straight away.
Okay, so it's more. So do you guys think it's like Scott B saying? So when you consider the long term, and I think we're all long term hobbyists, right? We're going to be playing in our old retirement home where we're all hanging out together. Yeah. When you consider the long term, no army is good or bad forever. So may as well go for what you like and then hold that shit to the moon.
So this is the thing, right? You could say, the THWGN steal the cut point, right? Everything is going to go through peaks and troughs. Everything. Okay. As I say, I can remember and point to a bunch of instances in the last 5 years where Tower considered Giga broken. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here's an example from literally the last 8 months. 8 months ago, when Necrons dropped, they were considered really strong.
It's true.
We peaked.
You peaked. Now you're in the bin.
Yeah. So So I'm a perfect example of it. So I built a Necron army just before 8th dropped. And they were in a trough then. Then they got a codex, still in the trough. And like Tom said, 9th edition codex, a small peak during a pandemic. And then we're straight down into the trough again.
Then again, yeah. Like, and it's that kind of learning that, right? You never, if you buy an army because it's overpowered, expect to be disappointed very quickly in buying a new army.
Just want to read out Carpet Steel's comment in the chat. It says, I trust the friend who got me into the hobby last year. His Dark Angels beat my Stormcast every time, but he says it's just the reps I need. It's a very funny comment the more you read it. I think I fundamentally agree with both of you. However, it's a little daunting to collect your army. My Borgrins would be a good example. Or
it's a very serious choice, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is a serious choice because it's going through the ringer. You feel like if I took up darts of all fucking things, I don't know if you guys know darts, but darts is a sport apparently. You take up darts. Basically, it's just me lobbing a fucking dart at a board, right? Like my dart isn't any better than your. Like, but if Nick's got like a laser pointed dart, I'd be like,
laser guided.
Laser guided, with a little rocket booster. I'd just be like, what the fuck, man? Like, I want to play darts, and you're like, you just turn up with your fucking big dick dart. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, I could definitely feel the consumer who feels hard done by. Like, I really
Here's a good example. Snooker. Like, someone turns up with, like, a really nice cue, fucking expensive and shit, and I turn up with a stick I found in the woods.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because you like how the stick looked, I guess.
Yeah. I'm a fucking big fan of that stick, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, by the way, all of you, because I love my Borgrins. You can never have too many Borgrins. Perkysaurus, you know it, but I think...
You've always been playing them for 3 years now, Rob. You can play a different unit
I haven't
now.
been playing them for 3 years, man.
Like, I remember you playing them at one day at Sanctuary Gaming Centre when it was in the old dilapidated church.
And I had to play New Book Drukhari then, and they just fucking they smashed me. It was the worst. But then I got to play 2 other great games. It was like, I literally could do nothing in that game. It was the worst.
And you still managed to find a way to make it fun. That was actually incredible. I was watching that game.
You got to have fun with the people you play. Like, Like, no matter what, right? Bill Scar, I think it's more like sports teams. You support your team, good or bad. I get that, but people get sad. Like, no one... anyway, we could bring up some really bad stuff about sports and liking sports, but whatever. Vivi Fresh says, building 2 Demon Princes Chaos List. Never played 40k, but I heard in his interview and Nikos talk about all Spawn army, and I'm decided it was time to get some extra tentacles ready to go.
You do need some more Spawn. Spawn are always good.
Yeah.
Spawn are always good.
Spawn is pretty fun to hobby because you can just make whatever the fuck you want.
And it'll still look better than the Games Workshop model.
Yeah.
So much better. So much better. All right. I think that's it. I don't think there's much more news really to go through. Or unless you want to bring it up, Nick.
No, there's just something that I thought I wanted to give a podcast a shout out that I listened to yesterday. I thought it was really good. So it was the Normal Blokes podcast from Straya.
Yeah.
Straya. So I listened to their podcast on the secondaries data. So they did it. So I'd recommend anyone check that out. So they did a really good show on the secondaries because they got some data from download pairings and ITC battles, and some interesting points from it were that. So according to the stats that they had, if you get to 70 points in a game, that's the swing point for having over a 50% chance to win the game. So that's sort of like the sweet spot of points to aim for. So like 45 primary, you should always aim to get 45 primary. So then according to that data, as long as you get 25 secondary points, you've got a really good chance of winning the game. So when you're building your list, we've talked about it before, try to design your list to score at least 2 particular secondaries. So I just thought that was a really interesting show to listen to. And they talked a bit about what secondaries were statistically good and statistically not good, and things like that. So it was really good food for thought when I'm thinking about lists that I'm going to write in the future, like my Death Guard list and things like that. So I just want to give that a shout out and say that it's a really good one people should listen to. And I also want to give a shout out to this dude behind me.
Oh yeah,
the Lord of Virulence, because I played a game a week last Wednesday, and I fucking love this dude. I think he's fucking brilliant, and I don't know why everyone shits on him so much, because I played a new faction, Mortarion's Chosen. Mm-hmm. So I didn't use the Warlord trait or the Relic, although I think the Relic's pretty good, but not.
Is the Warlord trait the ignore rerolls to hits and wounds, right, for that Mortarion's Chosen?
No,
I think it is.
No, that's Mortarion's Anvil.
That's the one. Yeah.
I can't remember what the Chosen Sons one is, but basically what I used it for was their stratagem, 1 CP, you can make a Plague Spewer, basically Flamers, damage 2. So that was pretty good for my list. That was pretty good for my list because I had 3 units of Death Shroud, 2 3s and a 4, and then I had 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, so they've also got Flamers, and then my Lord of Virulence, he's also got a Plague Spewer, and he's got loads of. You can stack a load of stuff on him. So he's got the Pathogen, which makes his Flamer strength 6 and reroll random shot. So he's got 2d6, rerolling number of hits, strength 6, AP 1, damage 2 with a strat, and any 6s to wound are an extra AP. He's got the Lord Arch Contaminator, so he's rerolling all of his wounds in shooting and combat anyway. And if you charge him, you can just auto hit with your Flamer. I think he's fucking great. Okay,
all right, yeah. Big shout outs there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna write some Bullgrin lists after the show.
On the app, yeah.
Just emotionally hurt myself, obviously, on the app, because I actually have the app, pay for it every month, love it. It's the best.
One of you subscribers is paying for Rob's app purchase.
I want you to know that I'm not, so just super clear on where that money's going. Just to kind of round the show off, I'd like to shout out. I'd like to shout out the Honest Wargamer event. So we've started putting on our own little one-day events here at the TSN Arena, which is very cool. We're very much looking forward to that. We've got our singles event is already sold out, which is cool. But we do have, so it's based in Nottingham. If anyone who's listening, we do have 2 spots left for 2 teams to play in the team event on the Sunday, and I think that it's a really fun format. It's 4 teams of 4 playing over 3 rounds. If there's a bunch of people who want to contact, Nick and Tom have both offered, by the way, anyone wants to kind of put a Merc team together or wants to be part of a Merc team.
Yeah, so if you really want to come to a team event, just get in touch with either me or Tom on Twitter, and we'll try to put a Merc team together. Yeah, because one of the things I'd like to finish the show off talking about is, Tom, team culture in 40k. Now, obviously, having had Neil on the show and being in touch with the WTC guys a lot, and having had you on the show for the past 3 years, we've learned a lot. Nick, I feel like I've learned a lot from Tom about team stuff. You've also been to quite a few at least a couple of team events, which are quite rare in England, generally, team events. So the fact we're holding one a month at least, I think it gives people an opportunity to be in a team and learn what that's like. But Tom, talk to me about because you've been kind of getting into Age of Sigmar, and you've also you're obviously a huge member of the 40k community. Talk to me about the differences you see based in the UK at least, and why you think there's a cultural issue.
I'm lucky enough to be part of an Age of Sigmar club, and I say Age of Sigmar club, a club with a large Age of Sigmar presence, and tangentially 40k club as well. So I'm part of the Dragon Slayers, but I'm also do a lot of 40k team tournaments. And when I go to 40k team tournaments, it's normally me and a couple of mates all go to a team tournament together, right? So it's just it's very much a case of if one of us can't go, we just don't go to the event because it's just me and the mates, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm going to a team event with like Slayers or what have you, it'd very much be whoever can go just goes, right? And there's always plenty of people around. It's very much like a club rather than just a small collection of dudes. Now, you do have clubs that are very much geared around 40k, like Northern Warlords, for example. Hull's Angels is another example. But they're not really like identified with the club. They're not members. They're just, I go to this club, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than it being an actual... It is still a community, but do you know what I mean? It's not very much I am a Northern Warlord or I am a Hull's Angel or something, right?
Well, I want to ask you a question about this because I wonder. This is just a wondering, just off listening to you talk for a second. Age of Sigmar, there's quite a lot of clubs, a lot of like team events, a lot of like clubs and teams thing going on. I wonder if that there is like a staunch push for individualism in the 40k community, specifically because of things like ITC.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Thank you to War Masters Forge for subscribing. That's appreciated loads. And also thanks to Warhammer Brian for subscribing. Beautiful. Big love to you
Tasty
both.
Primes, very nice.
Yeah, thank you so much, all of you. Warhammer Master Forge was asking about coming and playing at the arena at the weekends. We pretty much intend to have events on every weekend, but you can always contact us. Someone's already booked the entire venue out for a whole weekend. At one point, so that is something that's possible if you want. Tom, sorry. Do you think it's got anything to do with the individualism of ITC, if that makes sense?
No, because it's always been a case. Even before ITC, even back in the Rankings HQ days,
Ooh.
It was always kind of a thing. Yeah, neither of you guys will know what that is.
Warhammer Fantasy Battles rankings used to be on there as well.
There you go. Yeah, it did. We had them back in 40k back in like 2013, and a guy in my local club once told me that my ego was too big because he was higher ranked than me. He was higher ranked than me because he'd been to an event with the most broken list I've ever seen at an event and gone 1-4 with it, and therefore he had got some fucking tokens. I was like, well, all right then. I guess that makes you more qualified. So, yeah. What was that? What was the point I was going for? But yeah, it's never really been a thing where it's just been like, here's 20 dudes and they're all under one banner and they'll send like a team from their group to go and play in an event, right? Whereas in Age of Sigmar, I feel like that's more that thing. Like, we don't have a club that will go to an event and then whoever finishes bottom out of that group of dudes has to wear a comedy bottom for the weekend.
Which is what the Dragon Slayers have.
That's a comedy. It's a comedy bottom.
It's the comedy bottom.
It's a bottom slayer. So yeah, we don't really have that. But I don't know. I feel like 40k takes itself a little bit more seriously. I think you might be a bit right with the individual stuff, and especially when you're talking about you have all these podcasts where people are breaking down data, but people just quote unquote run at you and kill you lamau. Whereas Age of Sigmar feels like a much more like sociable hobby, which feels weird.
But the thing is having been involved in both game systems, there's phenomenal people in both.
Yeah, like, 100%.
I don't think there is anything fundamental about 40k or the community of 40k.
No, yeah.
That pushes that. I don't think there's anything about the game. I don't think there's anything about the lore. I think maybe like just thinking out loud, the ranking system seems like something that makes sense in that regard. Yeah. But Nick, have you got any thoughts on any of this? Oh, sorry, Tom.
No, I don't know whether it's just that single events have just been the norm, and then if someone's like, "Oh, I want to run an event,"
have I lost you both?
No, you've still got me, mate. You're fine. Nick's just gone. You lost me earlier, but that was my fault, so it's okay. I can finish my point if you want me. It's fine. So in 40k, we don't really have. I have never seen in a 40k event 2 people throw down on the floor and call it Street Hammer and like take bets with their shitty armies that they made over the course of like a day. The closest you get is like the Urban Cherries or everyone just going out for a takeaway and then Tom throwing up in a drain because he ate too much, right? Yep. Or everyone just going for a night out. Whereas in Age of Sigmar, it very much feels like more off the cuff, less, less stringent about it, right? Like I'd normally go to an event, I'd then play my games, I'd go to a hotel, I'd chill for a bit, I'd go to sleep, come back the next day, play my games. I wouldn't even think to just, like, when I went to Bobo, it's a really weird experience for me, coming from a 40k background, let's put it that way.
In what way?
I didn't, well, you know how they have the challenges?
Yeah. 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 Well, then let's be the cultural change, at least in our area. Like, yeah, no, I agree with that. Tom is muted. Sorry, Tom. But you weren't muted. It's because Nick's gone. Your audio was gone. So.
Yeah, we get it, chat. We get it, chat. Shut up.
You know the challenges. Sorry. Tom, do you want to reiterate your points? Sorry.
I can't remember.
Damn, podcast guys, for the silence. We're sorry.
I had a list. It was fine. Talking about how in 40k I'd just go to an event. I'd play my games. I'd then go off and go to a hotel, chill for a bit, maybe get a KFC, and come back the next day, play some more games, eat the rest of my KFC because they ordered way too much, and then go home. Whereas if you go to Bobo, I've never seen challenges before. I've never seen people playing games in cosplay before. I've never seen people screaming at each other and just running at each other all the entire game before. The closest I've had is one guy screaming "War" in the middle of Warhammer World Event Hall.
The worst.
So, yeah.
It's Nathan always.
Yeah, I mean, it probably isn't. I need to play Nathan at some point. It might be fucking hilarious.
I think Warhammer Brian and also Pete Pratt pointed out earlier that we kind of got to exercise a bunch of demons in the death of Warhammer Fantasy Battle and the rise of Age of Sigmar, because there was obviously the destruction of kind of like a significant player base who went to play the Ninth Age, and I've not seen a single one of them smile ever. All love to them and their journey. Obviously, like nothing but love to them, and I hope that they enjoy mini war games.
Because I know they go to the ETC or happen to be ETC.
I know they do.
Only when they win. When they win it, great, they're happy.
So yeah, I would but I said to you just kind of before we sorted out the sound, I was like, we should be that change, at least culturally.
Yeah,
like 100%. In people having more fun, because I think that it's very much like, and I want to shout out, if you guys go and look at me on Twitter, so obviously you should be able to find me on Twitter at 6skills. Yes, Shadow Sun has just done some cool Eldar terrain. So like that was one of the things that we've been talking about here on the show, is like, why can't we have terrain that's functional and good looking? Like, why isn't that a thing? Like we can push the agenda of gaming significantly, and we should, because it's fun. And that's not going to be a takeaway. I think team events at least will be fun. Anyway, you guys can come and form a team here, and you can reach either Nick or Tom to play one of those, or just get a team of 4 together and come get a ticket and play, because it's going to be fun. And we're going to hold one of those, I'd like everyone to know, at least once a month. So you can go and find it on our Eventbrite page, which is where we're doing them. So at least once a month we'll be doing a 40k teams event and a 40k singles event. And I think that that's going to be really important. I really wanted to put that into the schedule, Tom, because I wanted people to practice or learn what it was like doing the card process. And because for a lot of people, hey, Nick's back. Hey, Nick.
Hey, I don't know what happened.
But yeah, I was just saying that that the getting a team together and playing, I think, is a very fun experience. And if there aren't many events in the UK where that's happening, I think being able to go and practice something, because you can't just get practice in, because practicing a team event is even harder than just practicing a one-on-one game. I need my 4 guys, or guys, my 4 people, and then my opponent's 4 people in the same place to do 1 round of practice. I think that's really key. Yeah,
and you need to be able to go to a venue for that, unless someone just happens to be super rich and has a massive house with 4 tables.
Someone's asked about dates in July, so I'm just going to let them know live on the show, because if you listen to the podcast or any of those things, you are the most important people. So let me just tell you. So in July, the 40k stuff is based in no, that's June. The July dates are the 24th and the 25th of July. The events. But there's already one in June. The singles is sold out, which is on the 26th of June, and on the 27th, Squads. What do you think of the name Squads? I like Squads.
Squad is good, yeah.
Yeah, Squads.
You can't change that. Yeah, it's fine. Perfect.
Squads. All right, you guys got any shout-outs before we head off today?
Yeah, I want to give a shout-out to Nottingham Forest FC for relegating Derby County this week.
Yeah. Sports.
You're going to lose to us intentionally to get them relegated.
Go Sports Ball.
Go Sports.
What about you, Nick?
Guess I'll give a shout out to Innes Wilson.
Oh, bloody hell, that was right. That was a thing that happened.
That was a thing.
Sweet. The end of summer term, maybe able to make it. Well, I'll put the tickets up soon for everyone, which will be fun. I'd like to give you two a shout out. You're obviously brilliant human beings, and I appreciate being able to do a show with you every week. So thank you, which has been really fun.
Thank you as well, Rob.
Anyone who's listening, don't forget we will be live tomorrow. But also, most importantly, we'll be live during all of the reveals next week. Fuck, I didn't even ask you. Quick snap fire? What do you think the reveals are going to be?